Hi guys, Mike here. So in this episode we are going to download OWS, register an account on the Saber Dart Studios website, and integrate the OWS plugin into our project. So let's get started. So before we can integrate OWS into our project, we need to download the plugin. The plugin itself comes as a template project as well. We are not using everything from there because we are recreating many things, but let's download it first. So all the sites that I'm showing you right now, the installation where you can register and log in, I will provide in the links in the description. So first we need to download the UE5 version. There is the OWS plugin for UE5. You can find it here, or like I said, in the description below the link. So let's download this. It will open up kind of like Google Drive and download. So download anywhere. It's 381 megabytes. So let's download that and return to this page. And what you can see here is the complete installation instructions for that template project and what you need to get everything running. So we are going through all of that. But the first thing you can see is log into the OWS Management Console. The Management Console is a really great tool. It kind of like manages your whole account. So like all the instances, the servers that you have, it manages the characters that are created and save every kind of thing from the character, like its inventory and so on and so forth in there. So, and you need like an API key that you need to set up in the project later on. So that's why we need to register now an account on the Saber Dart Studios website. So under this link, you can now register with your first, last name, email, password, and start your free trial. And once you registered everything, then you can log in to your account. Let's log in first in my account that I can show you around a little bit. So here is basically the dashboard of the open world management console. And you can see right here your API key. Mine is kind of like, I hide it basically. But this is the key that you later on need, that we need to input into certain config files for the system to work. And there you can see like under characters, there's my basic character created later on when we get into creating the login, the register screens and so on, that you can see that we register a new user through the client and create a new character that will be saved here. Characters can have custom data, have like an inventory and so on and so forth. All that stuff will be handled later on. Here you can see like the world servers, the zones that will be created basically. So right now there's not really much. It's the default stuff that is created, global data and so on and so forth. So this is the open world management console that we need later on. And the most important part right now is the API key that you then need later when we set up and install OWS in our project. So once that is downloaded and installed, let's head over to unpacking it and moving the files we need. Okay, so once we downloaded the OWS plugin, I extracted it into this folder. Like what you can see here, we have what we created in the last video, our Unreal folder, where we have our Darkstar Chronicles project. I unzipped the whole downloaded plugin into this folder. So you can see here it's an UE5 project with several other folders that we need for our project. And so instead of moving, let's just copy some folders and files. So let's select the OWS Instance Launcher. Let's select the CPP hint, generate project files, open world bat, and the XLSM file, and copy it directly into the Darkstar Chronicles folder. So now this is copied. what we also have here is under plugins, the OWS plugin. So that is the main thing that we need. And let's copy this as well here. So for now, this is all what we need to copy. Let's maybe even rename it so that it is just called OWS plugin for UE5. This will be our reference folder or reference project later on that we can go into and have a look at some blueprints and other stuff, and what we also need in the config files, what we are doing in the next step. So now first, let's have a look at the open world local bat file. Let's open this up. I'm using Notepad++. And this file basically starts the editor and opens the project and the login map, basically based on a certain resolution. And this is when we are testing the game later on outside of the editor. And what we need to do here is change basically our directories and names to the U project, to the login, and also the Unreal editor. So in case you didn't install it in the default directory, you need to adjust the Unreal editor.exe file. So in my case, this is the correct directory to the Unreal editor exe. And then of course our U project doesn't or isn't named Open World Starter. It's named Darkstar Chronicles.u project, of course. So let's edit this. Chronicles.u project. And basically now what we need to do, let's make this a little bit smaller. What we need to adjust is the map. So in the original template, we can see that under content, we have third person, and there's maps, and there's the login UMap file. And what we need to do, or what we did was in the last video, we created our Darkstar folder and maps. So the way it works is that Unreal looks onto the game folder, which is basically your content folder, and everything underneath there then goes like what we see here: Darkstar, maps, and login map. And then what I would suggest to do is type 1920 by 1080, and the rest could be like this. So this is the first thing that we need to do. When we use later on that bat file, we can even rename it. I just leave it now like it is. And so we adjusted this. And all this information you can find in the installation documentation on SaberDart's website. And so next there are two more changes we need to make. So let's first head into the OWS Instance Launcher and edit the app settings.json file. And here you can see we also need to adjust some directories or some paths to our files. And one thing that is really important is the OWS API key. So if you go back to the management console, you can see your API key is, and then you need to copy the whole key and add it into this spot here. We need it into, I think, in two places. So let's copy this, paste this. So we have the OWS key here. And then we also need to change path to the Unreal editor, which is, in my case, correct again. And then, of course, for the server arguments, we need to change the directory to our U project again. And you have to be careful here. For this to work in Windows, you need to use 2 backslashes for the directory to work. So in our case, it's not the C drive, or let's copy this or look where it is again. So it's under D, Projects, Unreal, Darkstar Chronicles. You can also copy this here. And then we have to make sure that we add those extra backslashes in there. And then our project is called Darkstar Chronicles. And that is everything that we need to adjust here. We save it. And the third and final file we need to adjust is under config, default game, ini, edit this. And you can see it's really empty right now. So what we need to copy is some text from the config file, the default game ini from the template project. So you can see here, there's a lot more stuff in here. So let's copy things like the project name, RPG API customer key. Let's copy all of this for now and paste it underneath here. Let's call this the project name Darkstar Chronicles. Again, we need the API key, which we have in the JSON file. We copy this and paste this here. So we pasted the same key here. And there is some more stuff in here that we need later on, the path to the abilities system. We don't need, well, we use this, create this, and the rest of the stuff once we get into abilities and create that. But what we could use is this, doesn't hurt, copy, so that use packed files and cook all, and put this in here. So the important part is really to have the customer key and the path, or all the notices, maybe not the copyright notice, or rather like we would need to change this, of course, for our stuff. Let's delete this first and just leave this in. So we have all this information here, and this should suffice for now. So we made the adjustments from the default game ini, app settings.json, and the open world local bat. And so we won't be having a working complete OWS system. We need to create our classes later on to, like I said, be able to open the login, create a login map, create the login screen, the code behind it and everything. So we really can test the bat file and open it or execute it. But what we can try or see if the OWS Instant Launcher works. So for that, let's open a console, either the standard command console on Windows, or I opened the Git console, and let's change directory. So CD to the drive where you installed it. For me, it's the D drive. Let's go to projects. You can use the tab to autocomplete it. Then Unreal, Darkstar Chronicles, and OWS Instance Launcher. In here, we have the OWS Instance Launcher.dll file, which we can execute with the command .net, and then call the OWS Instance Launcher.dll. Execute it, and it's spinning up the server. And if you can see, like OWS Instance Launcher with RabbitMQ, server spin up, queue success, then we can see it works. So with Control C, we can close that now. And I know this is a real try and seems like boring video, but it's really essential to set this up at least. And the final step we will do in this video, before in the next video we create our plugin, we will now open up source tree, add and change our Gitignore file to not include the OWS Instance Launcher and the OWS plugins or plugin. So then in our project, let's go to the Gitignore file and edit it with Notepad or some other editor. And in here, let's add a new section. Call it OWS specific files and directories, for example. And this works based off like the root where the file is. So we need to add the OWS Instance Launcher and plugins OWS plugin directory to that file. So what we do is just say OWS instance launcher /star, which means every file underneath that folder, and then we go plugins /OWS plugin and /star, so that everything underneath OWS plugin is not included in our repository. So we saved that. And the reason we are doing this is because in the future there will be updates to the plugin, so we will need to override the files, and this is something that we can always download and include. So this is not something that, in my opinion, should be in the repository if you wouldn't want to put it there, so that it's easier for you if you just want to download or clone a new repository again from what you have in DevOps or any other GitHub repository. Then you could actually include this and download it, and you don't need to change anything or put these plugins back in and stuff. But we are not going to change any code in there. We are just using it, so I'm not including it in the repository. And once that is done, and this will be the last thing to do for this episode, open up source tree, and under file status you could see, okay, we have these files here changed, we have our default game ini that is changed, and we have our Gitignore file that is changed. So you can see our Gitignore is working. We don't see the OWS plugin in every file that is there, and we don't see the OWS instance launcher. So what we can do now is say stage all, or let's do one thing before we do this. We go to history, and there's one thing I want to do now is that I'm going to use tags, so that basically you could, for each episode that we do, there will be a tag like episode 1, episode 2, and so on, so that you could actually clone or download the version from that specific episode. So what we would do is right click, select tag, and I will say episode 1. So this is the tag then for the last video that I didn't do, add tag. And now we can stage all our changes now. We type in a comment. So added OWS plugin, hit commit, and then we are going to push this to our online repository. Click push. And it's committed the changes and everything is done now. So what we can do now is add another tag to this episode 2, add the tag. And so we kind of like have these tags assigned to those different things. So of course I'm creating tags for the changes I do after every episode so that you can follow along. But if you want to use tags in your own projects, that could specify a specific milestone that you've reached, but you don't have to put in tags after every commit. So if you're working on something, make some changes, push the changes to the repository, and then after a certain goal, after a certain milestone that you reach, then you can add tags and define that certain milestone or certain goal that you have reached in your development. So, but here I'm adding these tags just for each episode. So that's it for this video. This was a little bit dry, sorry about that, but it was really necessary. Now we have the plugin downloaded, registered, we got our key, we edited our files, our ini files, the bat file, and so on, added the keys, we looked at the OWS instance launcher, got this to work. So for now we got this working, and in the next video we will create our plugin, configure it, and create some initial classes that inherit from OWS classes, and you can see what we need to do to get this working, what we need to add in our build files, that Unreal can build them, and that we can use in our own plugin classes from the OWS plugin. So I hope I see you guys in the next one. Until then, bye bye.